How's it going, people of Flourish? I'm excited to be here today. To give a background to Flourish, this is an island in the middle of the ocean. Logistically, it's a very difficult place to get to. And I hope that my story and experience and path can give you a better insight of a different reality and how the world can be viewed. My background briefly, I was a consultant, economics, finance. My whole basis is take, consume. Consulted all over the world, worked for corporations, worked for governments. And along this path and trek, I ended up in a country of Bhutan. Bhutan, it's an isolated country. It's landlocked between China and India. And it is the last Buddhist nation on the planet, the only Buddhist nation. It's actually a kingdom. The king's a very humble person. He lives in a small house. And the whole philosophy of Bhutan is compassion and cooperation. This was weird for me at the time. This wasn't a concept that is taught in school. It's actually the reverse. And it was something that I could not walk away from or disconstruct for efficiency. It didn't make sense in my reality, so it bothered me. It bothered me for a long time. So my girlfriend and I formed an association called Choki that is based out of Bhutan. And the emphasis of Bhutan is for the benefit of all at the expense of none. Again, very weird concept coming from the Western modern world. Bhutan's the only carbon negative country in the world. It's the only organic country in the world. It's one of the few culturally cohesive countries left in the world. And now it's taking steps to enter the modern world, the industrial age. So this is kind of where we are today, and this is where the conversation really overlaps between traditional values, culture, what it even means to have an economy, and the modern age. So Bhutan measures its economy not by an economy, but by gross national happiness. So what that means is it's not digging up its mountainsides, it's not polluting its rivers. It used to be until a few years ago, the whole country was vegetarian. To fish was illegal. But again, they started having tourists, and tourists started demanding different products. They also have different organizations such as the World Bank and the IMF, and now China and India, all just trying to take what they can for their economies. Bhutan is the cleanest place I've ever been in my lifetime. It's the last Shangri-La. Like, that's their key phrase, the last Shangri-La. And it really is the last Shangri-La. Okay, so back to the modern world. So now Bhutan is being forced to basically fragment its economy. It is doing so. The king is a great king, but he's taking a more relaxed approach, and he's letting more foreign interests come in. Foreign interests are fragmenting the culture. And in Bhutan, it's very interesting to see how this relates, because Bhutan doesn't see the physical, they see the mental. They focus on the mental. The mind moves the body type of a deal. What's happening is, in terms of Buddhism, these negative qualities are now influencing their whole culture. It's greed, it's ego. It would be considered the poisons of the Dharma. So this cohesive economy, which is all based around happiness, they measured it, and it was somewhere around 80% growth rate annually. So again, from like a business consulting perspective, you have to understand and ask yourself, how is this possible when the modern countries can't even grow without flooding their whole economy with money? Different topic, but it relates. The reason Bhutan does so incredible is because their whole identity, their whole culture is the cooperative culture. But this relates from the environment. Everything that Bhutan has is cohesively based from the environment. The environment is purely compassionate, it's purely cooperative, and this is how their system and their social structure is cohesive. The neighbor doesn't take from his neighbor for profit. The neighbor and the neighbor contribute together. One person might grow flowers, the other person might do honey, the other person might have zucchinis, and this is what they do together. It's an incredible thing. They're the only place that has this kind of system. Everywhere else we have corporations, they're fragmented, everybody's supposed to be competing for the same thing. It doesn't work. So how this relates to modern society. In Bhutan, cancer rates were basically non-existent until Western society came along. So that asks the question, how do you identify modern society when your population is sick? But that's great for economic growth. A sick society is great for economic growth. An obese society is great for economic growth. A society that's uneducated and complacent is great for economic growth. In Bhutan, the society is cohesive to achieve enlightenment as well. So it's just like nature, it's all cooperative where your neighbor wants you to be the best. Many people speak multiple languages. I think the prime minister speaks about 12 languages, but again, it's a third world country. How do you identify it? Technology that fragments society, culture that's non-apparent in society. There's a big gap between what our reality even is. So back, sorry, I'm deviating a little bit, sorry. So back to the topic of how do you identify a culture or a society? In the modern world, our culture is identified by world economics. It's identified by the marketplace. If you're not great in the economic marketplace, you're not considered. If you're not manipulating numbers or extorting your fellow neighbor, you're not considered successful. Complete opposite in Bhutan. They measure everything by goodness to the community, well-being to the community, and contributions to the community. Being a monk is the highest standard. Being like a business tycoon, it's not real. It doesn't exist. Back to modern society. We live in a world where the marketplace dictates everything, whether people know it or not. The people that want to be rich only know what they know and how to become rich from the people that want to make money. Our whole suggestions and thought processes are due from, call it whatever you want, marketing, propaganda, stimulation of your mind to only select a certain amount of products, a certain ideal, a certain image, a certain projection. So what is the modern society? What is the modern reality? Most of these corporations, after consulting, you kind of figure out a theme. Most of these companies aren't necessarily private. Most of them work in collusion with governments all over the world. Most of the money made is always at the expense of either the environment that's ripped apart or by the people that are also there. An example, this is all over the world, okay? It's labor. I don't want to use the term sweatshops. I don't know if that's accurate anymore. But it's labor camps in almost every country that would be considered third world. So you just have to ask the question, okay, so how is my modern society formed? So in the modern economy, most people have this perception of happiness that's manipulated by propaganda associated with emotions of happiness. You have a nice car, you're happy for 20 minutes. You build this construct of reality where you're the private banker and all your friends have these interests, but nothing is real. It's all projections on the surface of what these people should be doing. And most of these people always end up completely unhappy, but the underlying theme is the same. It doesn't matter where you are, what culture you're in, and that would be the search for beauty. And this raises a question, what is beauty worth? The best example in the world that I could personally find is, what is this worth? We're at a place in probably the most beautiful place in the world. It's a UNESCO biosphere. The whole island is a geopark. It's a natural museum, but it's free. It inspires everybody that comes here, but it's free. The photographs of this are seen all over the world, but it's free. So how do you monetize this in an economic system that just degrades this? It's difficult, it's old, it's antiquated. So we really need an economic system that can identify this as an asset and not a commodity. And that's really the problem. And it's perpetuating even faster now with, like I've already talked about, a lot of the countries that are basically being mined and just labor farms for the modern world. But it's not so much now isolated to these places. It's coming back to the modern world very quickly, and it's going to continue. So until we give like an aesthetic worth to something and how it inspires and how it should be preserved for future generations, nothing is ever going to change. Like, we're just going to keep racing towards our own sickness, our own short-lived life expectancy, our quarrels with our neighbors. Like, there's no other way. Either we identify nature as beauty and as something that should be preserved as our life. Clean water gives us clean health. Clean air gives us clean health. We rely on these things for life. But it gets twisted into privatizing it, making us sick to create an economy. We need to stop with the false projections of privatization for an economy and protect what is here and just solve the problem completely. So, yeah, this was a quick talk, but this is my expectation that you might have a different insight and question a little bit more about what you buy, what you eat, where it comes from, who controls it, and just try to live a better life from the individual perspective. And from what Bhutan taught me, it was the benefit of everybody at the expense of none. And if everybody takes that approach, the world could change in a day.